Olamilekan, representing Ogun West Senatorial District in the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. President, I would have loved to bring this while considering the other paper, but I feel that it should be better, the votes and proceeding, rather to say, I feel it would be proper to come by a proper motion to seek for the cooperation of this Senate on the observation we make while trying to clean and realign the appropriation bill that was recently passed by this Senate. And that is why I'm coming up with this motion of rescission and with the kind permission of the chair.
So, come again.
That's why I'm coming up with this motion of rescission under order 1B and 52C6. With the kind permission of the President.
You may read the others.
Thank you. Order 1B. The proceeding in the Senate and in all committee of the Senate shall be conducted in accordance with the following standing order. In all cases not provided for in this standing order or by sectional or other orders or practice of the Senate shall by resolution regulate its own procedure. 52.6. It shall be out of order to attempt to reconsider any specific question upon which the Senate has come to a conclusion during the current section, except upon the substantive motion for rescission. So, Mr. President, I'm coming under these two orders to allow me to move this motion as it affects the Appropriation Act that was recently passed by the Nigerian Senate.
Distinguished colleagues, Senator Olamilekan had to make in the recently passed appropriation bill, which is awaiting Mr. President's assent. Is it the view of the Senate that he be allowed to proceed? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You may move your motion.
Very distinguished colleague, the Senate recalled that the 2025 appropriation bill,
Senator, yes. The Senate clerk is saying that the motion needs to be seconded, but I think the correct thing is for him to move the motion first before it is seconded. So this will be the last time we correct the clerk of the Senate.
Thank you.
I don't know whether you get my point. Senator Nengi, you are looking like a professor today.
I recall that the 2025 appropriation bill was passed by the Nigerian Senate and the House of Representatives on Tuesday, the 13th February 2025. The Senate observed that at the point of cleaning and realigning, the Joint Committee on Appropriation discovered some inadvertent errors in the underlisted lines item passed by the Nigerian Senate and the House of Representatives as listed below. Note that while the total sum of 54,990,165,355,396 and statutory transfer of 3,645,761,358,925 naira expenditure remained the same as past, while the recurrent non-debt expenditure was increased to 13,588,9,682,673, and the capital expenditure was reduced to 23,439,251,624,250. Aware that the Joint Committee on Appropriation had effected this correction in the appropriation bill, thereby making the long title to read thus: that a bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 54,990,165,355,396 naira for the total sum of the budget, while the sum of 13 trillion 645 billion 761 million 358,925 is for the statutory transfer, while the sum of 14 trillion 317 billion 142 million 690,548 is for the debt services, while the sum of 13 trillion 588 billion 9 million 682,673 is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, and while the sum of 23 trillion 439 billion 251 million 624,250 naira is for capital expenditure for the year ending 31st December 2025. Relying on the earlier stated order of the Senate, that is Order 1B and 52C of the Senate Standing Order 2023 as amended, accordingly resolved to rescind his decision on this affected line item, the long title has passed, and recommit same to the Committee of Supply for reconsideration and passage. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, I so move.
And I want to
speak out. Use your campaign voice.
I say, first of all, I second this motion. And as a former chairman of the Committee on Appropriations, both in the House of Representatives and in the Senate here, the immediate past chairman of the Committee on Appropriations, I know normally after every appropriation process, you could have some errors due to the clerical staff errors or calculation error or human nature, and then you come forward to correct those errors. Thank God they are very meticulous, and they've been able to discover these errors at this point before the budget is even passed. I mean, before the president has sent to it. Otherwise, we have gone under corrigenda, writing corrigenda here and there. So I commend them for being able to discover these errors. So therefore, I think the best thing is for us to move forward and get this corrected so that we can package the entire thing. They can package the entire thing and get that forwarded to Mr. President for his assent as soon as possible. I don't think there's any need for any debate here, rather than to get the entire thing passed so that we can move forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
But let me ask a question. Does this deviate from the total sum that was passed by the Senate? No, let him answer so that he doesn't come back with another one.
No, sir, there is no any change in the total sum of 5499 billion budget that was passed by the 54 trillion 990 billion budget that was passed by this Senate and the National Assembly. The only area where there is movement is between the recurrent and capital expenditure as stated in the long title of the bill that I read in the concluding part of this motion.
Okay, so the chairman.
My name is Mohammed Sani Musa, representing Niger East Senatorial District. Your Excellency, I think this is one thing that we should commend the Appropriation Committee for cleaning up what has been presented, and before the final assent to the budget, if you look at the recurrent, you will possibly see either an agency or an MDA over blotting what they're supposed to have taken earlier. So what the Appropriation Committee did was to align them so that the recurrent and the capital will go as they're supposed to be in the budget. And what they have done is right, and I believe that all here, because we have also in the Finance Committee looked at the presentation right from the budget office to the time that we ran the MTEV and everything, and we saw that everything aligned. So what the chairman of Appropriation Committee have presented is in order, and I call on my distinguished colleagues to just pass this amendment without any delay.
Just a question. The motion for rescission, which is in line with the standing orders, Is it also being done in the House of Representatives?
Mr. President, the same budget and it's the same report. If you could recall, it was a joint report that was signed by both chambers. And we are looking at the same thing, and we are doing the same thing as we speak. As what we are doing here, they are doing the same because we presented
That's my question.
Okay.
I wanted to be sure that we are not going to set up another committee to harmonize anything.
No.
So if what you are bringing before us
Yes.
are corrections that are being done
in the House of Representatives.
simultaneously, mutatis mutandis.
Yes.
Then automatically we can go ahead to invite a seconder to this motion. Yes, distinguished Senator Sani Musa. A question. The House really won the line item. Those in support that we resume the decision on the affected items, the long title has passed, and recommit same to the Committee of Supply for immediate reconsideration and passage. Say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The majority leader, we may move a motion for us to move to the Committee of Supply to conclude this.
Thank you, Mr. President, and very distinguished.
Distinguished colleagues, the Senate in the Committee of Supply considered the rescission of some line items in the 2025 appropriation bill pursuant to Order 1B, Order 52.6 of the Senate Standing Order 2023 as amended and approved as follows. Recurrent expenditure as recommended. Ministry of Police Affairs as recommended. Total pension, gratuity and retirement benefits as recommended. Office of the Head of Service Provision as recommended. Military pension and gratuities as recommended. NHIS military retirees as recommended. DIS civilian staff pensions and gratuities as recommended. Department of State Security Services as recommended. Nigerian Intelligence Agencies provision as recommended. Pension Transition Arrangement Directorate (PTAD) as recommended. Police pensions and gratuities as recommended. Customs, Immigration and Pensions Office recommendation as recommended. Universities pensions including the arrears as recommended. Parastatals pensions including railway pensioners pension as recommended. NEMCO as recommended. National Pension Commission PENCOM as recommended. Other pensions as recommended. Presidency allocation as recommended. Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation as recommended. Ministry of Police Affairs as recommended. National Security Advisors Office as recommended. Secretary to Government of the Federation's Office as recommended. Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment as recommended. Federal Ministry of Innovation, Science and Technology as recommended. Federal Ministry of Transportation as recommended. Federal Ministry of Works as recommended. Federal Ministry of Water Resources and Sanitation as recommended. Federal Ministry of Women Affairs as recommended. Federal Ministry of Education as recommended. Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare as recommended. Federal Ministry of Environment as recommended. Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of Supply? Yes. Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to authorize the issuance from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation of the total sum of 54,990,165,355,396 naira only, of which 3,645,761,358,925 naira only is for statutory transfers, whilst 14,317,142,609,548 naira only is for debt servicing. The sum of 13,588,9,682,673 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 23,489,224,254 naira only is for contributions to the development fund for capital expenditure for the year ending 31st day of December 2025. Third reading taken. Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to authorize the issuance from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 54,990,165,355,396 naira only, of which 3,645,761,358,925 naira only is for statutory transfers. 14,317,142,689,548 naira only is for debt servicing. 13,588,9,682,673 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 23,439,254,250 naira only is for contribution to the development fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2025. Third reading taken and passed. Well, let me once again commend the chairman and members of the Appropriation Committee for dictating these typographical errors and bringing them on time for us to receive and represent to Mr. President for assent, because it would have taken a longer procedure for amendment if this had already been transmitted to Mr. President for assent. So I commend you for the transparency. But I thought you also add that you apologize to the Senate for the errors. You want to say something on that before I ruled?
Well, thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleague. I just want to use this opportunity to thank Mr. President and that for the stress we have taken you through. As chairman of the committee, we say we are sorry, but it's just that we have no other choice than to go through this process. Once again, I thank everybody. Thank you, sir.
Your apology is accepted by the entire Senate. Those in support of the apology, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. And in reality, those in support of the recommendation for the transparency, say aye. Those against, say nay. The recommendation is upheld. So thank you, Leader of the Senate. CBA 2025, SBA 712, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues.